In September 2023, I flew from Sydney to Iceland for a real bucket list motorcycle tour with local company Ride with Locals. Upon arrival, the first thing we had to do was pick our bike. They've got 350s, 450s and 700cc bikes. And even though I ride a 701 back in Sydney, I opted for the lighter 350, which I loved. Then we had a briefing by the owner's schoolie. He told us a bit about where we're going to be riding and what to expect. And after that, we jumped on our bikes and we headed out.
Because you never know what is going to come in.
There were 8 of us in the group, but what we didn't realise at the time was that before the end of day one of our party was going to be off with a broken leg. And then after day 2, their partner was also going to leave the trip. So we spent most of the trip with 6 of us. So here's the plan for day 1. We started at Selfoss and we had about 50k of tarmac, and then we hit the dirt, and we had a lovely first day's ride, and we ended up in a hut called Rupanavella. The terrain on day 1 sort of started pretty average, but it just got better and better as we approached the highlands. The volcanic surface that we're riding on is quite amazing. It's quite soft, so you slide a lot, but it never seems to give way. I never had my back wheel or my tyres slide out on me. And it's just so much fun. It's just kind of like the bike's bouncing around, it's sliding around, but yet there's so much traction. It's a strange surface, but it's probably the best, most enjoyable surface I've ever ridden on. Now this is where the accident happened. You can see on the right-hand side of the track there's a sort of rut and a washout, which is easy enough to avoid. But Stephen got his front wheel stuck in it and the bike came down on top of him. And at the bottom of the hill, we were taking selfies in front of the waterfall and enjoying just the beautiful panoramas. And we didn't realize that Stephen was actually pretty badly hurt at the top of the hill with a broken leg. Stephen had fallen at the top of the hill, which was very exposed, and it was cold and windy. So the first thing we did is we took him down to the bottom of the hill and found some shelter. Even down here at the bottom of the hill, it was still pretty cold and windy. It was going to take some time before the support vehicle reached us. So we decided to actually put Stephen on the back of a bike and double him to a nearby hut where he could stay warm while we were waiting. At least Stephen was now warm as we waited for the support vehicle, which took him into hospital.
Look happy,
and determined that he'd broken his leg in 3 places. The wind continued to build that afternoon, so we beelined it to our hut for the night. It was a beautiful little hut on the banks of a river just set in this gorgeous valley. So we settled into our first of 5 nights in the mountain huts. It had been an eventful day 1. It was day 2 and it was windy and wet, so we didn't have high expectations about this day's riding. The guides planned some local things to see, so we're going to check out a couple of waterfalls and some volcanic craters. While the wind stayed on and off during the day, the rain actually stopped and it was pretty nice riding. Riding up to the volcanic craters was pretty impressive. came to our first sort of longer water crossing, and the guides gave us pretty clear instructions. Take it nice and slowly. Well, Nick didn't follow instructions.
Well, I'm not going to bloody wait for you then.
Nick had to do the walk of shame and push his bike through the water. Turned out Nick had drowned the bike. Thanks, Nick. Luckily, the guides were well prepared. They had spare oil, so we did a quick oil change on the side of the road, and we got going again. The views were just incredible. It's almost like around every bend was just an impossibly beautiful panorama. And riding through the lava fields, it just felt like we're on another planet at times. Lots of time to just stop and take in the view, take a few photos. It really was beautiful. And after a wonderful day 2 of riding, we headed back to our hut for another wonderful meal. But tonight we had movie night, and we were going to watch Eurovision with Will Ferrell, and highly recommended to anyone that wants to get some insight into Icelandic culture.
Who wants to hear Eurovision song? Yeah, ding dong, here we go!
On day 3, the wind eased, and it's looking like better weather. So we rode from our hut up to an incredible waterfall called Hyfoss, and another amazing valley that I cannot even attempt to pronounce. And then we went to the thermal springs at Lamanalaga, and then finally drove to our new hut for the night. When we got to Hyfoss,
Go closer, Nick.
we were greeted by just an incredible sight.
Cross is scary.
Being right on the edge of this incredible canyon with just not one but 3 spectacular waterfalls was quite mind-blowing. Then we rode to this incredible canyon, the name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. After Nick's escapade of drowning the bike on day 2, the guides were taking no chances and making sure that Nick wasn't going to drown any more bikes. It was too cold and too windy for us. We didn't want to take all our gear off and get in the springs and then get geared up again. But I ended up staying here with my family a few days later, and my boys sunk quite a few beers that evening in the hot springs. Then we took a route up into the mountains, and I don't think anyone was expecting it, but it started snowing. And the snow just got heavier and heavier, and the next thing you know, we were riding in a winter wonderland. And while all of us had ice and snow head to toe, we just loved the experience, especially coming from Australia. It's not something you get very often, to ride through snow and a blizzard. We made our way to a new hut for night 3, and it was in just the most beautiful valley, and it was an incredible hut. We had the hut to ourselves, and it was just a stunning, stunning vista to wake up to. Day 4, and this is where things went to a whole new level in terms of beauty. We rode from our beautiful hut in the valley through the volcanic region of Hekla and ended up on the other side of the national park. The weather was fantastic. The wind had dropped, and we knew we were going to have a really great day's riding. Now, in my adventure riding in Australia, I've seen all kinds of warning signs, but never one for volcanic eruption, so that was a new one for me. We were now riding towards the volcano Hekla, and the riding was fast, it was flowing, and we all sort of just got into a groove and just had a great time. The clouds were quite low, and it created quite a sort of dramatic landscape. It was just really hard to describe what it was like to ride through. While Nick and I both ride 700cc bikes in Australia, we were both just loving the light little 350s, and it was just so much fun to slide them around on this incredible surface. As the day went on, the scenery just got more and more spectacular, and we all were just loving the riding more and more. Day 4 was just amazing. In terms of terrain, we had a bit of everything on day 4. There was sort of slower, more rocky trails, and then we had the high-speed, flowy trails. We even had snow riding and some sort of steep hills. I found myself using a term in Iceland, impossibly beautiful. And it really just describes what I was seeing. It's almost like around every turn, around every bend, the scenery was just impossibly beautiful. And I'll finish off day 4 with some examples of what the riding was like and what the scenery was like. It was mind-blowing. After Nick drowned the bike on day 2, our guide was taking no chances with Nick. He was giving him remedial crossing advice. You know what it's like when you're riding and all of a sudden you just sort of become one with the bike. You're relaxed, you're riding about as well as you can ride. The terrain is amazing, the track is fantastic, the weather is incredible, and the scenery is just mind-blowing. You kind of get into this euphoric mode, and that's how I felt on day 4. It was just probably the best riding I have ever done.
Oh, he goes!
We finished day 4 at a new hut, and this hut was situated right on the edge of this most beautiful, beautiful canyon. Day 5 was the highlight of the trip for me because we were going to ride in the Black Desert. Our route today was a circular route through the Black Desert, but the sights that we saw were just mind-blowing. The weather was perfect, and we were all really excited about the ride today. Actually, it's probably worth just introducing our 3 amazing guides that we had on this trip. We had Maggie, who was fantastic. Secondly, we had Modesta. And then finally, we had Ava. All three guides were just the best. Hats off to them. We set off under beautiful blue skies and made our way to the Black Desert. The colours of Iceland are amazing. The bright greens against the black soil just make for an incredible palette. We stopped at this beautiful little hiker's hut and just checked out the view and just took some time to take it all in.
Tunnel? This is tunnels? Like a lake on it.
The pace definitely picked up on day 5. I think we were all just really comfortable on the bikes and on the terrain. And we were having fun. Then we came to this really beautiful lake and we just spent some time riding up and around it and onto this little peninsula, and the views around this lake were just mind-blowing. I really appreciated the stops that we made because, you know, often when you're riding along quickly on the dirt bikes, the views can just fly past you, and just stop and look around and take these views in. It is pretty special. The next stop was the Black Desert. And I was really looking forward to this because, I don't know, I love these vast, open, desolate areas. I just find them really fascinating.
Oh yeah, that view is just awesome. Look at that.
The Black Desert, I'd seen a few pictures of it and I knew it was going to be something special. And it didn't disappoint. You know, some people might find it just barren and not attractive, but I don't know, it was incredible to me. I love just this desolate bleakness. It was stunning. And as we started climbing up the mountain, there was steam coming off the ground, and I wasn't sure if it was steam from rain or whether it was from volcanic activity, but it was pretty cool. And as we approached the top of the mountain, all of a sudden the views just unfolded in front of us, and it really sort of took our breath away by the vastness of it. This was a great place for our lunch stop, and yeah, we just enjoyed this pretty special view. Then as we left the mountaintop, we drove back down and we just had this amazing view across the Black Desert that we had ridden across. I think this will give you a real sense for how amazing it is. The Black Desert did not disappoint. That afternoon we rode pretty hard and we rode pretty fast, and it was a long day, but boy, it was a beautiful day. It was just so spectacular and enjoyable. Without a doubt, day 5 was my favorite day. By the end of the day, we were hungry, we were tired, we were thirsty, but boy, what an amazing day 5. It was the final day of our tour, but Iceland still had a few gems to share with us. Today we made our way back to Selfoss from our hut, but we rode through some pretty incredible landscapes. But I thought I'd start the day by screwing around with my drone and capturing some images of these gorgeous canyons right behind our hut. They have a saying in Iceland that if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes and it'll change. And that's very true, but unfortunately in our case it sort of changed for the worse. The clouds came in and it created a pretty moody, mysterious atmosphere. But on this last day, we came across some scenery which is just as good as anything we'd seen on the previous 5 days. This waterfall was pretty cool to ride across. We then rode back out into another black desert. Again, I just love the starkness of this landscape. Like, check this out, a perfect green cone just coming out of this black desert. How cool is that? The guides had one more little finale up their sleeves. They took us down into this beautiful little canyon where we could just ride along the river, and it was a lot of fun. I always find myself just reflecting on the trip on the last day. And my reflections of this trip were, while Australia may have more adventurous motorbike riding, I can't imagine anywhere in the world that has more beautiful riding than Iceland. The landscape is just stunningly, stunningly beautiful. In fact, I've already signed up for another trip next year. I'm going to the West Fjords in June. And as for the tour operator, I'm not big for tours, but this trip was just brilliantly organized. The people that I was riding with were a lot of fun. The guides, fantastic. The equipment, totally reliable. And it was faultless. I would highly recommend them to anybody.